community. Don't sit around too much.
Thank you for joining the June 13th, 2019 VOLTHA call. We do have a demo lined up for today and then a brief status update from Sean on the ONF and BBF CRISPR. And just a reminder to everyone, the VOLTHA meetings are public and we record them and do post them to YouTube afterwards. So please keep that in mind during any presentations and during the discussions. With that, I think we'll get started with.
And Julie, before we start, one item I forgot to mention.
Okay.
Scott Baker is here, so we're going to just let people know there will be the PM query kind of discussion during next week's the pod management brigade.
Yes, that's right. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Yeah, our call is Monday mornings at 8 a.m. Pacific time. It should be on the public calendar if anyone would like to join.
Thanks, Scott. Okay, so David, if you're ready, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you for the demo today.
Sounds good. Looking for the share my screen button. There we go. Let's do screen because it's easier. All right, people should be able to see my screen, I hope.
Yes.
Blank.
Okay, great. It is blank. It's just a large terminal right now.
Okay.
What I'm going to demo today is very quickly the voltctl command that I've been playing with. It is an alternative to using the CLI for VOLTHA through SSH. It follows the pattern that people might be familiar with kubectl or Docker, just as kind of a CLI-based command to access those capabilities. Scott, as he's on the phone, has also been doing one for Cuddle, and found out yesterday that for Onos, they're also doing a command structure both for their atomics storage capability, as well as Thomas has started one for Onos. So we're seeing kind of this pattern emerge where the ONF tools themselves are starting to use kind of the Cuddle type commands. So it's very simple. You can download it as a binary or compile it yourself. It has nice things like you can do completion so that you can come up with a bash shell, and it's already loaded into my bash shell, so it'll do command completion for you. So you can just tab and it'll show you the different commands available next. Simple things like version will show you both the client version as well as the version information from the VOLTHA cluster you're running. You can do output in various formats, so you can output it as JSON and then pipe it through your favorite JSON processor if you want it to look pretty. So you can get the format in a lot of different ways. I also have some adapters loaded, so you can see there. So quickly on the adapter page, you can also do things like filtering. So I could say, show me everything, I don't know, let's use vendor with a regular expression, and there's other compare operators too, or match operators, sim, and you can see it'll filter down. It also has capabilities to do ordering. So it can sort from the different columns. Both the filtering and sorting or order by are done on the client side today, just because the VOLTHA API doesn't have those capabilities. So here's a JIRA open that we really should evaluate that API so that these type of operations can be done on the server side. Additionally, and I'll just show you this again with the adapter list, you can do things such as specify the format. So if I just wanted to see the ID, oops, I did it wrong. work there. You can just see the ID, or you can list it just like you would do with a docker command or somewhat with a kubectl command to get the format. Similarly, because it's a command line base, I can do things like volta enable or volta device enable volta device. Oh, it doesn't create. And if I did it correct, it'll volta device create generates or as output the ID of the device, which I then essentially pass off the device enable. So now I can see the devices in there. And a more interesting filter here is based on type. So if you have a lot of devices, I can go off and just get the OLTs. And again, you can do format as JSON as various things as well. You can see the logical device lists, flows, which have shown up there as well. And you can notice it also does command completion to give you the IDs of devices. So you can do that as well.
David, so
yeah.
when after the flow, you sort of tap, right, the 6C, that number,
right,
the device ID. How many devices we have here?
That was a logical device. So there's only one of those. So here's device flows. You can see there's more devices there. The OLT, which I'm going to try to do the flows of, is here. But so I could just type 07 and it'll complete the rest of it. And then you can see the flows there. And again, this has all the same things. So I could do an order by, or got to spell it right, order by. And here's where it gets a little more interesting. I can order by reverse tunnel ID, I guess. And it'll do sort in either ascending or descending order with a plus, or nothing or a plus will do ascending, minus will do a descending, as well as you can specify multiple fields for order. So I then could do something like VLAN ID, and if it's implemented correctly, it'll do descending tunnel ID, and if there's a match on tunnel ID where they're equal, it'll do then ascending on VLAN ID. And on top of that, you could do filtering to filter out different ones that you want as well. So, you know, if you have a lot of devices, again, I don't have many devices or many ONUs on this right now, but you know, this is, you know, the order by the filtering gives you a lot of flexibility. And again, everything can be done as JSON. So when you do JSON, it gives you the full data. Whoops. I got to do output JSON. JSON. It'll give you the full data set, and so you can look at quite a bit of more information. There's a ports command, so you can also get the ports from the devices as well as the logical devices.
For example, the previous one, can you do the page by page scroll instead of going back to use the? I would assume if you have a
less, you can type it through less. Right now, the APIs also don't have the capability to do page data. So if you have a lot of devices, it gets them all today. There's, again, I think the API should allow some capability for paging. It would be easier in some sense, because if you have, when you have 1,000 devices or 10,000 devices, you do device list. You know, you don't want all 10,000 because it's likely not going to be the data set you really want. You want to be able to say, hey, give me, you know, you page through it, you know, 1 through 100 and page through that, and then 101 through 100 or 200, or you're going to use filtering to do that as well. And even if you're going to use filtering, as I said earlier, this does client-side filtering, which means if I have 10,000 devices, I have to go get all 10,000 from the server and then filter them on the client side, which is not efficient in what you want to do either. So regardless of which tool you use, this CLI or the SSH CLI, those API calls are the same. So paging large data sets is a feature of the client, not a feature of the API. And so the API really should change. I mean, for this, again, if you want to page through results, you can pipe it through your favorite pager and manage it that way. So that's what it is. It has, for the devices, you can, oh, I didn't show the inspect, which just gives you, again, a JSON object of that device. The other interesting thing is, of course, the commands can take multiple values. So you could do, if you have multiple devices you want to delete, you could do volt control device delete, and then specify multiple things on the command line, multiple IDs, and it'll go through and delete them. The device is active now, so it won't do that. It's got the tool itself has some weaknesses around the error messages. It just outputs them kind of blindly today. There could be some cleanup of that. And as people, or if people decide that they would like to use this and need some more commands, let me know, or add them yourself. They're pretty easy to add. And I will be continually working with Scott, as Scott's done a lot as he's developed the Cuddle command. I've been stealing back from him things that he's added as he borrows things from me. So it's been a good partnership, I think. So thank you, Scott. And we'll continue to work with Thomas and Jordan as they develop their tools to see if there's some commonality we can embrace there as well.
So David, is their tool also using Golang and borrowing from the same code base?
It's using Golang. It's actually using some different libraries. And again, I just found out about it yesterday, so I need to investigate what they're doing and understand if it works better. But it's the same sort of philosophy that they're using a library to do the bulk of the work. And so they, the parsing, the command line completions, all done by an underlying library. So you really just, at least for our case, you just have to kind of add and execute. I think it's probably the same for them. It may make sense to go to a common library, either theirs or ours, and that might be some rework. I just have to investigate that.
Yeah, sounds good. Let me know what you find.
Yep.
David, one thing is, I'm just being a pain here. It's not either or, right? It could be both. This current CLI version and this version are both available. Is that correct?
That is correct. What is it? It's VOLTHA service cluster.local. So I'm running both here. And we'll see if this one actually works. Apparently it's not going to give me devices, but yeah, they're not exclusive. VoltCtl is, oh, there it goes. It just took a while to get back to it. VoltCtl is just an alternative if you choose to use it. It's not in the Git repo or the Garrett repository. It's on GitHub right now, so it's not even an official part of the VOLTHA release. It's just I use it because I find it convenient. That's why I wrote it. I like it, but if people don't like it and want to use the existing SSH CLI, more power to you. That's fine.
Okay. Of course, if people still want to use CLI, then really no reason to spend a lot of energy on this one for you to maintain and upgrade, right? So definitely, I think that maybe either or is, on the resource point of view, either or is a better approach. Let me ask you a question. So another question, it seems like again, that will expose my lack of the experience with VOLTHA hands-on myself. On the VOLTHA CLI, you type this SSH account, you get into that. So how do you so where do you install the Cuddle, and then how do you know which instance of the VOLTHA you are accessing? So
thank you very much. Thank you. Actually, that's good. Forgot some of that. First of all, voltctl can be downloaded as a binary from GitHub. So you can just go here, and it's built for 3 different platforms. Never tested it on Windows, but there's a build for it. You can just download this binary and put it wherever you want. It's a fully inclusive binary. There's a config file. So VOLTHA config can generate it for you. So there's the config file based and for my instance, so you can see the server I'm accessing there.
okay.
VOLTCtl takes different commands. So right now I'm using API version 2. In theory, this same command will talk to API version 1. I haven't tested it in a while, to be honest. So if you have a version 1 server, you can use it against it as well. It has placeholders for TLS security. Haven't implemented that yet. If I wanted to, say, oh, instead I want to use API version 1, I could do this, and it would generate a config for API version 1, or I could specify the server. On startup, the command looks in that file for the config. So if you do a config and pipe it to that file, for example, you then have a persistent config. And you don't have to specify the server or API version on each instantiation.
Okay.
To your question on resources, it's going to be an either or. If the community, as I said, I did this because I find it convenient for me. I like it better than the SSH version. If the community chooses not to use this, that's fine with me. I will continue to use it and likely support it to my needs, just because I find it more convenient. If more people find it more convenient, great. Happy to have people on board.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned about the high availability or something like that.
What we were talking about earlier. I was going to bring that up, but that's okay. One reason I like this approach is it removes one container from a deployment. So in this current deployment of VOLTHA, I'm actually running the CLI container. It's not required to be run if you're using voltctl, which means you don't have to worry about is the container highly available, right? Do I have to have multiple instances of it? And as someone pointed out at ONF yesterday, well, you could just say, look, if the CLI crashes, it'll eventually restart. You don't need HA for the SSH container. And I suspect that's okay. That's true. But again, you don't need that container at all, to be honest. You don't even have to think about it this way. You're essentially using the same gRPC API that any other client of VOLTHA would use. And beneath the covers, the SSH CLI does the same thing. It just outputs it differently. And it's a Python access to that API.
And on the deployment point of view, right? So what I'm thinking is, how can operation use this, right? So do they need to? Okay, so you have operation has 10 instances of the SIBA pod, and then so if I want to go into the SIBA pod, so I go into that server pod, right? And then there will be a local VOLTHA Cuddle in that one.
You don't even have to do that. I could have it on my laptop and then say I want to access I have one pod that's V1, and that server is my V1 pod.company.org, I guess it would be com, right? And then I could do version. Of course, this isn't going to work because this server doesn't exist, but I could have this on my laptop and access that pod. And then if I want to access another pod that happens to be version 2, I could just use different parameters. So I could access it directly from my laptop, assuming there is IP access to those pods externally. Or you could go and, you know, SSH to each pod or a machine in each pod, and if voltctl's there, it would have that access too.
Okay.
So David, securing the gRPC APIs is going to be key in that. I assume you see the TLS security and stuff that you've got.
Yeah.
Stuff in there is how we would do that.
Yeah. Today, VOLTHA's
David, are you there? I think David.
There you go. Can you hear me now? Yeah. I don't know what happened there.
Yes. Yes. I think your internet. Yeah. Sometimes when you speak, has a little bit jitter there, but not.
Oh, okay.
Not that you stutter, but it's. Sorry.
So what you're saying is I need to get AT&T internet service?
No. Hey, this is being recorded.
So, Scott, to your question, yes, TLS is a placeholder. When the VOLTHA API supports that, I will. That would be my incentive. And I absolutely agree with you. It needs that capability. Just today, there is no real security around the API.
Yeah, I think we have the support in XOS, though I probably haven't actually tried using it. It would be good for me since I borrowed your code on all the TLS stuff to see if it just works.
That would be great, wouldn't it? Probably not, but yeah, it would be great.
David, I have a question. What's the option called the config?
Yeah, the config option generates the base config that you can put in your home directory. It's just a convenience routine to generate the voltctl config. And I did that just so users could get an initial configuration. And so, for instance, all you have to do is pipe that to home.volt.config, and that'll become your static configuration for voltctl. And so you don't have to re-specify your server. And so that really is just a convenience to get that base configuration out.
All right, I got it. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
Are there additional parameters you can add to that configuration?
Not today.
Not today.
As people require them or request them, we can absolutely add it. I guess I would do that. I expect this will build out as or if people use it and find they want improvements.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Yep.
David, thank you.
Actually, this, back to NorthForge on that. One of the advantages I see of this command over the current CLI is the JSON output. So for testing, being able to get the output of a command or data from the system in a more readily parsable format, I think is helpful for tests. Getting that output as JSON as opposed to, using an expect script against the SSH CLI. That is one advantage I see as well. Or more,
yeah, that's
closer using the gRPC.
Yeah, that's a big advantage. Does that apply to all commands? All commands
Yep.
can put out their responses in JSON? Okay.
Absolutely. So you could do voltctl logical device flows. Give me the device dash o JSON, and now you've got it. Essentially, that table as JSON.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. Yeah.
So let me for the operation, I can the operator or the NOC people, for example, they can just install this client on their working station, and then they just redirect whatever pod they want to go to based on just like argument of the command or on your config file or whatever, right? So you can redirect to all different.
Absolutely.
And then they basically the way it works just from your laptop to issue API calls with the gRPC to go to the destination part, the VOLTHA instance, and then get the result back into your local laptop, for example.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And then, so if we have a lot of operators, so I'm just thinking about how easy this is. It's sort of detached from where the VOLTHA is, right? And I think it's the same thing, but at the same time, it's still have a local client and then do that. It's sort of like an EMS. You have a local client GUI and then point to the EMS server and then go to different places.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jills, NodeForge is using CLI mostly for the automation testing. Do you think this is something useful for that?
It could be, but it means some quite a bit of changes to adopt something like this from what we currently have. But it's doable. We're considering it. It's one of the line items I have down for once we move to 2.0.
Okay.
Yep.
And again, David, is this tied into the VOLTHA 2.0 only?
No, I started developing it against VOLTHA 2.1, and so again, if you look at the command line options, you can specify which version you want to work with, and you should be able to go against a VOLTHA 1 server or a VOLTHA 2 server.
Nice. Okay.
I don't know what Bjorn and Paul Wagner. Do you think that on your experience with the operation, do you think this? We don't have to make decision now, but I think this is a very good demo, and then it seems to have a lot of good benefit, sorting and filtering, that kind of stuff. I think it definitely is good. And my guy says here also, I'm thinking the operators, do you want to take this opportunity to make any comments?
Yeah, hi Sean. Maybe a little bit too early from our side to make substantial comments on that. So we have to take it back and discuss it with our operation guys and see what they are in favor for.
Right.
If we have any feedback, we will provide it.
All right, thank you.
And I think I would encourage the development community here. I think most of the members on this call are developers. So give it a try. And then I think right now, as I said, it's not either or, but it has a benefit. I think right now, David, at this point, we're not deprecating the CLI container just yet, right?
Again, I have no intention of deprecating the CLI container. And if it turns out I'm the only one who uses this, I will use it because I find it convenient. But there's no requirement or anything about, there's no force of people to use this.
Right. if people need help regarding to the initial setup, and then they can just post on the VOLTHA Discuss.
Post and discuss. Give me a ping in Slack. Your call.
Right. And no, okay, thank you. And the other thing is, you already posted where the GitHub list, right? The link, right?
I posted that in the discuss list or email somewhere. And I showed it in here, but it's just GitHub/CNS/voltctl.
Okay. Hey, thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.
Any other comments?
I think this is going to be useful for developers, especially with getting away from curl.
Yeah.
For scripting.
No, I think that's, for the lab and for the developers, I think this definitely has potentially, easier for them to operate also. But I think for the operator point of view, I think that's something we need to take this into for the operation to review also. Like Bjorn was saying, maybe a little bit too early to call, but I think AT&T we definitely will look at this one also, and maybe have the operator feedback. When I say operators, operation group within the operator. Okay, David, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, David. And then Sean, I think the next topic was yours. So you were going to give a brief update on the ONF and BBF positioning paper status.
Right. I think for the people attending the VOLTHA face-to-face meeting 2018 April in Dallas, we invited the Broadband Forum members to give a talk regarding to the BAA and OBBA projects. So there is a positioning paper coming out of that. It took a year to finalize it. And on the ONF side, we expanded the scope not just for VOLTHA, it's actually included as a CBA as a whole. Right now, I think the final review from the ONF side has sent it back to the BBF. I'm hoping there will be a joint release agreement will be established, and then I do believe they will have a common press release to announce the positioning paper and express the willingness among two organizations to collaborate, to at least to collaborate, and then to work together as much as they can. So I think the newest version of the paper, ONF and BBF is doing the final agreement now. So once it's available, we'll share with the CBA and the VOLTHA community. So we'll make available. It's very high level. So if you've seen it before, probably didn't have much change than that. Just to let you know, it could be it could be released anytime soon. I think the Broadband Forum meeting is next week in South Korea, in Seoul. So I'm expecting. I don't know whether that will be released around that time. That's the update. And the other item, again, as I said, the pod management and the VOLTHA FCAPS brigade will discuss the how do we do an on-demand query on the PM data from the device or from the Kafka. I think that right now, I do believe that maybe on the device level is more leaning toward, but but I do think the members from this community, if you're not involved with that brigade, maybe I would like to invite you to attend that brigade, especially the operators. So provide your input regarding to the PM retrieval. I think yeah. So Sterlite make a demo this week regarding to the optical level reading, and so the data is now available through the ONCI test messages, and then report automatically into the Kafka bus right now because of that contribution. So that stirred up the discussion regarding to some of the PM is not the on-demand retrieval on the PM, that functionality also need to be supported. That's why we scheduled that meeting on Monday. And if I can send out the GoToMeeting information through the VOLTHA Discuss also. I think that's all I have, Julie.
Thank you, Sean. Any questions for Sean? All right. I didn't hear of any other topics that people wanted to bring up with the group for today. So that is it for our agenda. But let me just poll the group. Are there any other discussion topics that you need to address with the community today before we drop today's call?
Julie, this is Frank DeMeo from Broadcom.
Yes.
I attended yesterday's brigade meeting for the porting of the OpenOLT driver to Bell 3.0, and at that meeting, I offered an early release availability of release 3.1 to the community. We will make that available next week if there's interest in uptaking it. Jason has agreed to take a look at it and see whether there would be any problems in uptaking it instead of 3.0. And it would have an advantage because it would have all the fixes or the two fixes for the two bugs that he found in 3.0, one of which didn't even exist in 3.1. And it would also give the community the opportunity to have the features and functions of 3.1. So it's an offer, and we're going to make that available next week. That will be in advance of our GA release sometime at the end of the month or thereabouts.
Hey Frank, that's great news. I think thank you for working with the brigade on releasing that. I think I'm sure there are a lot of people, especially the members involved with this 3.0 brigade, will be very interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, by the way, thank you for sharing the presentation you made regarding that doing the VOLTHA lockdown. I do believe I shared that with the VOLTHA Discuss already. If members of this community doesn't have it, send me an email. I'll resend that out. That will be no problem.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Frank, is there the documentation update also?
That's in progress right now. I've documented pond protection. I've documented the ERPS and the NNI redundancy features, but I'm not doing all of the documentation. So I have those three topics available. You probably want in-band. You probably want PBIT to queue scheduling. Those I don't have, and I don't know where those are at right now. I know the programmer's guide is currently being created. Okay. And, I guess it's possible if you're willing to take, unedited or, unprocessed version, that we might be able to make that available as well. We'll have a release note as well, of course, but, the documentation is always the thing that happens at the end, mostly because you have to collect up everything that's changed, any bugs that have been fixed, and anything that hasn't been fixed that's still included in the release needs to be documented. So all of this stuff normally happens at the end of the cycle, but it's in progress right now. Obviously, we're only a few weeks away from release. So
great. Okay, great. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the group for Frank? Okay, Frank, thanks again. And just one more ask to the group. Are there other topics that need to be brought up with the community today? Okay, I'm not hearing anything, so I think that brings us to the end of today's meeting. So David, thank you again for the demo. And then we'll go ahead and close today's meeting. And then as Sean and Scott both mentioned, there is the brigade call on Monday that a number of folks may be interested in attending. And then we'll have our usual VOLTA meeting next week on Tuesday as well. With that, I will stop the recording and we will close today's meeting.